and welcome along to the end of Season 6 review from this Dorking Wanderers story with me, Daniel. We're back after a comfortable mid-table finish in our first season in League One. We really pushed on towards the end of the year after a pretty fight against relegation for most of it, and we managed to secure our survival with a couple of games to spare, and we ended up looking pretty comfortable in the end. We've got the board expectation of finishing in the top half next year, which is a little bit of a concern for us. We're going to go through all the end of season stuff today, have a look at our squad, how we might regenerate in the summer, as we have in previous years as well. And of course we'll go and look and see who's winning all the big competitions in the world. That's something we love to do at the end of every year. So it might be a slightly shorter end of season review than last time, just because I've got a lot of pressure on for the transfer window here. So I'm going to have to put a lot of time into that. I want as much of it to be a surprise as possible. And although we were going to talk about the boardroom a bit, there seems to be a little bit of uncertainty there yet again. So I want to try and leave that for now, just in case there's any surprises for next season. And as a result, it will be a slightly shorter episode. But of course, we will also have our end of season player of the year vote too. After last season where Matthew Smith was able to run out winner, much deserved with a 7.4 overall, we'll do that in the middle of this episode too, and you'll be able to vote up in the eye above. But let's go and have a look at our end of season news. We're just going to skip through an hour where it should come through. Normally it's 9 o'clock the day after the season, so I'll skip through for that and see you in a second. Here we go then, as predicted the messages are there, but firstly a massive thank you to everyone who continues to follow the series. If you did enjoy this season again, please do put a thumbs up on the video. I really do appreciate it. It does help the series so much. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe for daily FM20 content from both of my long-term stories. This one will be back with a big transfer special on Friday. And in the meantime, we've got some massive news in tomorrow's episode of The Head Coach. You can't miss that one. It's one of the biggest moments of the series. It absolutely baffled me when it came along. I'll be recording it straight after I've done this one, and it's one certainly to look out for tomorrow. But if we're looking for our players in the overall 11, they're playing in the old formation still, which I find a bit strange, and it's still majority of the older players. You'd expect that they were involved in title campaigns, years where we won promotion as well, whereas this time we've only got 2 new additions. James Simpson at right back, an area we've always had trouble, and then also Stefan Moles, who's done really well over a few years, so not too many surprises there. A few of the others probably won't get in until we get to the top of the League One level, and that may be 2 or 3 years off yet. So let's look at the best 11. Where are they now? 4 members have now retired already, but there's loads of players still at the club, which shows how well we've done. Though actually that brings us on to a bit of news. I think all of the players who continue to be involved with the club on that list there will all be leaving us in the summer. They're all out of contract till Matthew Smith's loan ends, and that does show just how much of a revolution we've got on our hands this summer. All of the players that have helped us from sort of National League to this point, they're all going to be on their bike now, and we're going to be going through the same revolution as we did in League 2 with the non-league players. The likes of Briggs, Richards, Pryor all left at once, and we're in that sort of position again now, I think. So a few more players that are going to be on their bike, and a really big summer in the transfer market too. But let's go through the bits of good news first. The end of season awards. Matthew Smith got player of the year yet again. That's a bit of a surprise to me. I thought John Kick would have got it. Over 20 goals in his first season here. Staying on loan again next season, of course. Young player of the season award goes to him too. Humphreys Durney, the best signing on a free. A young player with bags of potential. And Stefan Moles got himself goal of the year. He deserved it just for his season overall. If we look at our end of season review, we confounded critics by finishing in mid-table after being expected to just avoid relegation. I'm not sure why they're so surprised. We only pulled away with about 10 games to go. Otherwise we were in the relegation fight all year, so bar that one little run we probably did deserve it. And we've also got one of the least amount of players used in the league. That shows just how much of a consistent squad we've had, and that's probably going to change over the summer for next year as we try to balance to find our side for the next level. But let's go through the where are they now. We know about that one already. We need to look at the club visions for next year. Oh, that's the first bit of good news. I'm stopped in our tracks there. Look at the expectation for the end of next year. It's been changed to mid-table from a top half finish, and even the year after it then says work towards a top half finish. We've just signed a new 2-year deal as we can see, so we've got a security in our contract, and mid-table makes me feel a lot more secure next season. I'm really impressed to see that. I was starting to get a bit worried, as you saw in the last few episodes. Top half was not realistic at all for next season, so well done to the board for realising that. They've put it as a mid-table finish now, and we've got to work within the wage budget, normal 2-year contracts for first team players, all of the attacking football bits that were there before. There's so many things that we're used to here, but the fact that that's been reduced to mid-table really does help us for next season. That means we don't have to go too crazy on transfers. The end of season squad dynamics is also worth a quick look, and this is where we're going to have a lot of trouble this year. So in the summer I anticipate Matthew Smith, one of the 2 team leaders, leaving, Grant Smith, Terrell Whittaker and Jake Gallagher, 3 of the 5 highly influential players will be on their way. Harry Campbell possibly, there's interest in him, and he's not the best goalkeeper, he had a poor rating this year. I'd like to keep him as a backup, but if we get a transfer fee I won't do that. We'll happily get another keeper in on a free. And then out of the influential players, Zamura, Wright, Sherrin, Parkhouse, Broom, Simpson possibly, all 6 of those likely to be on their way, leaving just King, Brown and Cotter. So I really think that's going to be difficult for us too. We need to get in some established players. So in addition to all of the young players we bring in, we're going to have to go and find 1 or 2 experienced pros to come in. The likes of Cotter, who just come in and become automatically influential players. We can work the rest up the list then, but that is going to be a massive overhaul of the squad this summer. And James Simpson we talked about loaning out as well. That may sway me into keeping him as a backup. On to the end of season injury report, and that's something we struggled with a little bit this year. To be fair, it's mostly been backup players who have had knocks, but it has left us in a little bit of a lurch. But 3 or 4 week injuries, they've just been frustrating. Muscle pulls, we've not got a big enough physio squad, so we might have to look at that in the summer, maybe invest off the pitch as much as on it. We've got loads of staff out of contracts, so I'll be very careful with who I give new deals, and we'll maybe try and regenerate that side of the squad too. And a lot of those youngsters who have been out on loan, they'll probably be off in the summer as well. So it's probably going to be the biggest change you see in a single summer here, probably for the rest of the series to be honest. But there's a lot of players that we need to get out. There's a lot of youngsters we need to give up on, try and get through the next generation. So many of these youth players were bought in League 2 or the National League, where we thought maybe they could develop into League 2 or League 1 players. We've reached League 1, they're not going to reach that level. They might be League 2 players, but that's not good enough for us now. So we're going to let them go on freeze in the summer, and we'll just try and start from scratch with a new squad. So the boys are off for 6 weeks, they'll get their summer holiday in, we'll accept the new club vision with the mid-table expectation, and what we're going to do is skip ahead to the end of this month. I'll show you what we're looking to plan in a transfer window. We'll look at all the end of season competitions of course, but we'll be back in a moment to look at the squad screen, plan our summer transfer window, and we'll of course have our player of the year vote explained too, so we'll be back in a second for all of that action. Okay, so we're back the 1st of June, we're on the squad screen again. We've got 15 players highlighted that may leave the club, 16 who we think may be leaving the club this summer. A few are loan deals ending of course, some of them are players who are out of contract. We've got a few more who we'd like to get rid of either on loan or permanence as well. And even beyond that 16 there were 2 or 3 that could be on their bike, and they're ones that will be a little out of our control. So we're going to go through them in wage order, just because we've got a pretty low wage bill and I want to show the effects of some of them when I'm making my decisions. And we'll go all the way down to some of the players out on loan, and we'll go through them and see if any of you disagree. If at any point you do, let me know down in the comments who you think should be staying or going and why, who you think we can replace them with, whether you think we should stay in the same tactic next year, because I'm planning for this tactic, maybe a holding midfielder instead of one of the 3 central ones, and then one of Humphreys, Durnley and Moles could be a backup. We can maybe have a little bit more competition in the middle, but I'd really like to get an anchor man in. It seems to work well, and we'll just make us that little bit more solid at the back. But let's start at the top of the list. John King staying on loan next year, we already know that, as are Joe Thompson and Jack Walker. We know those 3 are staying already. Bulger just signed in the summer, we're going to keep him for now, doing alright after half a year. He's on a decent wage, but he's going to be a good pro. And then we've also got Kieran Brown as well, who's a good player. They're ones who are definitely going to be staying. So Matthew Smith's loan ends. He's been injured for 3 months. He's really had a good year again, but I just don't know how much further he can go. So we'll have a look. He is out of contract at Derby. He wanted £5,500 a week of wages when we offered him in the January window. So if in the summer he'll come along and he'll maybe accept a deal for a bit less, maybe £2 or £3 a week, then we will consider it. But any more than John King, we can't be having that. He's not good enough to warrant an astronomical wage. Then Connor Simpson is next, a player I've ummed and ahed about. He doesn't really fit into our new tactic with a front one. He was signed to play alongside the likes of Whittaker and King at the start of the year of course. It hasn't quite ended up working for him. He's often drifted out on the left. It just doesn't suit him playing in a front one. So I think he may move on either on loan or permanent. See if we can get a little bit of money and that would be absolutely fine. But either way, it's a shame it hasn't worked out, but he's just not the right player for our formation. Then moving on, Jordan Johnson's loan will be ending, just like Matthew Smith above him to be honest. Ryan Broom's refused a new deal. He wants £1,500. We can't pay that for what's going to be an emergency backup. And then next down is Terrell Whittaker, one of the higher paid players in the squad. We've tried to loan him out in January. He's just not good enough now. He's down to 2-star ability, I think. He barely got a kick this year, just 6 appearances, albeit he did score 3 goals to be fair to him, but they did come in one match a hat-trick. Otherwise he was pretty ineffective in the other 5. Then just after that come the two that might be added to these 16 players. Harry Campbell, still wanted by Gillingham, was wanted by Morecambe earlier in the summer. If we get a transfer fee for what will be a backup keeper next year, we'll just let him go. We're not going to put up a fight about that. There's so many average ones available on a free. We're not going to put up a fight there. And then Tom Cook, again, a pretty high value for a youngster. Doesn't really suit our new tactic with attacking wingers, but if we do get a good offer for him, he'll be on his bike as well. We'll happily take 100 grand or so for him. Just try and get a bit of money into the club. We are struggling financially, and of course he's not someone who suits our tactic down to the ground. We can loan in another right winger, or we can even go out and get a free agent. Next is Sam Sherrin, a player I'd really like to keep. One of our better performers in League One towards the end of the season. Unfortunately though, he wants over £1,000 a week to be our fourth choice centre half. I just can't be having that. 2.5 star ability at 25, he's not really come on leaps and bounds. I thought he might have a chance of making it like Moles did. He just started to adapt in the last year or two, but so many injuries and he's not really cutting it, and I can't afford to pay him a big wage rise. Moving on, Callum Wright signed a new deal, but he's not really performing to the best of his ability. Might be a loan deal for him. I'm interested in getting him some football still, but if we get a decent permanent deal, he'll go. Just get a bit of a sell-on fee if we can. But a decent player, he's been a good servant for us, just not quite good enough for League One level. Then Craig McGinty, the loanee, he'll be off again in the summer. Matt Smith's loan ends from Leeds United. Tyrese Forner will stay with us, a good player to have as a sixth choice midfielder, and can also play as the anchor man in case we don't get a backup. It's unlikely we'll get two very good holding midfielders. Grant Smith, the current backup keeper, he's been unhappy all year. He'll be off, he's not good enough for this level anyway. And Kevin Kavanagh, unfortunately time's run out for him. He wanted another extra 250 quid a week. I can't pay that, he's not cut it at this level. He'll become a non-league player, I'm afraid. I had such high hopes for him, but he never made it. Unfortunately, we'll be saying goodbye to him. And then some of the bit part players, the likes of Parkhouse and Zamura, who have barely had a kick this year. And in three of the loanees, Presley we tried to sell last summer, he ended up going out on loan. He's out of contract this year, as are McGowan and Watson. None of them really cutting the mustard. So we've also got Jake Gallagher, he's going to be joining us again next season. We've offered him a new deal with reduced demands, and that's just after the horror of looking at the dynamic screen, to be honest. We're offering him a new deal to keep him here and make sure our mentoring groups keep ticking over. What you can see from this screen also though is there's 2 or 3 players out on loan who will be coming back into the first team picture. Max Dodd, a young midfielder, he'll be our 4th choice or 5th choice in there. Kane Williams will replace Sherrin as 4th choice centre half, and Manny Cook will become the 3rd choice number 9 up front. 3 good players who could make it at this level. So an interesting summer in progress. Let me know what you think's going to happen. Do you think I'll get rid of most of them? Are there any players there who you think we should be keeping? Most of them I do want to keep a few, but it's just the wage demands for the likes of Sherrin and Broom. We'd happily have them as emergency backups, but they don't seem to want to join the club. And of course we've still got players coming in the new year. 4 or 5 players agreed to join on the 9th of June, and we're also just about to put trial offers in for 31 other players who are out of contract at the end of this month. A lot of them youngsters, some of the ones we bidded for in January actually, all going to be out of contract, moving on from their current clubs. We just want to give them an opportunity to impress here, so we'll see if we can get any of those in before July. It could be a really busy summer at the club here. 16 players going out, only about 7 replacing them so far, so I think there could be 8 or 9 more to come in probably, and I think it'll actually end up being more than that, as we're going to take a punt on 4 or 5 youth players too. But before we go and get on with that transfer window, and of course go and look at the end of season for all the competitions in England, let me just take you through the end of season player of the year vote. Up in the eye above, you'll be able to vote for your favourite of these players. I'm going to go in average rate in order to support you, just so you can see the players I want to pick out this year. A few of them fairly obvious, to be honest. I've got 4 standout candidates and then 1 other you can vote for as always, so please do cast your vote and have your say. Result will be in the next end of season review at the end of next year. I will of course have the new vote available too. So first candidate is obviously John King. 22 goals, 21 of those in the league, 46 starts. He's been unbelievable up front on his own. A dodgy start in the front two, it's got to be said, but once we went to a front one, he's been absolutely brilliant on his own. A wonderful player, and he's staying with us next year. A bargain on loan from Sheffield United. Second is Matt Smith. I can't ignore him. He had a good average rating despite having a less than impressive year, but injuries have caught up with him a little bit. It could be difficult for us in the summer, although will you vote him player of the year on his last day at the club? And then third, one of his central midfield partners who really has matured this year. For me, probably gets my vote, Stefan Moles. 7 goals and 5 assists, really developed on and off the pitch, becoming a leader at the club, and he's going to be an absolutely crucial player to us next season, probably captain or vice-captain on his current ability. A wonderful player, he's really come on leaps and bounds, and at 25 he's started to finally reach his potential. Now 26 he's going to be a superstar next year, and definitely a candidate for the first 11. And then finally he's a little bit of a left field one, and I've tried to choose between 2 of them here if I'm being honest, and it's Jack Walker and Barry Cotter, the 2 young defenders, two of them that have come in and really helped steady the ship for us this year. We started the season woefully, we were really poor, but Barry Cotter's the one I've gone for in the end, just because he's played out a position at centre-half for some of the year. When he's gone over to right-back, he's been a bit of a Rolls Royce out there, to be honest. Brilliant physical stats, really strong mentally. At 26, again, a player coming towards his prime, and another player who's made such a difference for us on and off the pitch, and someone I felt had to be highlighted. So they're my four candidates. You can of course vote for anyone else as well. I know that the likes of Kieran Brown and Jack Walker may be honourable mentions. Humphreys Durnley had a pretty good first year too. There's a few other good players in the squad as well, and you may want to highlight some of those, but for me they're the four standouts in my opinion. So have your say in the eye above. If you vote other, of course let me know down in the comments who and why, but we're going to go through and finish by looking at the end of season competitions across England and Europe. So we'll go and do our usual competitions review in a moment. Let's go to the Premier League screen to start. As we head over to the Premier League page to see that Chelsea have won their first title since this series started actually. 7 years in, they've finally managed to do it. The end of 6 seasons, they'll be defending champions into season 7. A really big achievement for them. If you did enjoy our review and looking at our plans for the summer, please do put a thumbs up on the video. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe for daily FM20 content. We'll be back with the regular episodes tomorrow, the head coach with a massive one coming up, and then in 2 days the transfer special at the start of season 7. Lots of action off the pitch at Dorking Wanderers. But let's quickly finish by looking at the competitions. Maybe surprisingly, Bournemouth again up in 7th place, nicking European competitions. Have been a really good side in this series actually, and Sheffield United, Villa and Watford all going down. They'll be back in the Championship next year. Swansea promoted via the playoffs, joined by Burnley and Reading who get automatic promotion. Wickham, Cardiff and Rotherham down to League One, where of course we've been playing this year, and Luton Town won the league as we know. My beloved club have managed to go back to the Championship. They've been a bit of a yo-yo team in this series actually. Coventry joined them, as did Sunderland in the end in the playoffs. They beat Notts County in the final, who we drew with on the final day. In fact, we didn't look to see how Nottingham Forest got on. Did we not see them anywhere? Did they have an average season? They finished 12th. How boring's that? Nottingham Forest, entertainment every season. Go back and look at all of the end of year reviews. They've been brilliant in every one. This year a boring mid-table finish. Didn't do anything in any of the cups by the looks of it either. I'm really disappointed by that. 3rd round of the Carabao Cup, 4th round of the FA Cup. A bog standard season after so many entertaining ones. What a disappointment from Forest. Going down from League One, obviously the big surprises: Bradford, Plymouth, Southend and Northampton, all bigger sides than Dorking on paper of course, and they'll be joined in League 2, not by Crawley Town who got promoted. Gillingham, Port Vale and Stevenage getting automatic promotion, but Rochdale knocked out the Football League. They're down in the National League next year. Newport County joining them as bottom of the table side, and in the National League they'll be joined by a number of teams, one of those not Scunthorpe United, the side we've been managing in the head coach of course. We'll be back tomorrow with them as usual. They've been promoted to League 2 in this series though, and Sutton United champions of the National League, the London side moving into the EFL. Some big news at the bottom of the National League though. Hartlepool and Barnet both relegated to the regional leagues. They're joined by Braintree and Eastleigh, but they're a little bit surprising for my liking. So let's go down to the north and south. Are there any other surprise names down there? Stockport promoted back to the National League, as are Halifax, another one of our head coach sides this year. Not really many surprises in the relegation, perhaps Kidderminster outsiders, but the 3 others have been promoted during this series. And then finally the National League South, Merthyr promoted to the National League. They're joined by Dover, the champions, who we managed in FM18 of course, and then Bath relegated alongside Grays, Enfield and Salisbury. Billericay surprisingly just missing out. The money's obviously run out, they're in a little bit of trouble, and they were almost relegated down to the regional league. Finally, the cup competitions. Manchester City win the FA Cup, a 3-0 victory against Bournemouth. Down to the Carabao Cup, United lost to Liverpool in the final 1-0. On to the Community Shield, Arsenal won on penalties at the start of the season against Liverpool. Southampton under-23s won the Leasing.com trophy. The under-23 side seems to do really well in this competition. Doesn't happen in real life, we've often seen the pro sides doing better, but the under-23's dominant here. They've won the last 3 competitions as you can see on the right. And then moving down to the FA Trophy, Leyton Orient comfortable winners. Another big day out at Wembley for them. Finally, we move to the European competitions to see that Arsenal have continued the English dominance in the Champions League. 6 seasons, 6 English winners in game, 3 for City. Now Arsenal join United and Liverpool as well. A 1-1 draw and then penalties victory over Real Madrid. A really big win for them in that one. In the Europa League, a non-English final. For the first time, one of the 2 premier competitions in Europe won by a non-English side in this series. Sevilla beat Milan in an all-European final. Tottenham won it before that. They didn't manage to hold the competition, but after English winners for years, years in a row, we're finally back to a non-English side. Sevilla managing to break the trend, so well done to them for their victory. And then another Scottish side winning the third Europa Conference. Aberdeen won it 2 years ago, Atalanta last year, and now Hearts of everyone. A brilliant competition for the Scottish sides, really doing well in this series. We know we've got the leagues loaded, so that does make a bit of a difference, but a victory against Freiburg, a side that on paper should be doing better. So well done to Hearts for that victory, and well done to Scottish football for getting back on the map. So some interesting news in those ones. Let me know if there's anything I missed as we went through the leagues and competitions. But a massive thank you for watching this one as always. I really do appreciate it. If you did enjoy it, please put a thumbs up on the video. Let me know in the comments what you think of our summer planning at Dorking. Are there any extra players I should be letting go or keeping? And of course I'll take your views into account ahead of the transfer special, which will be back on Friday at exactly the same time. As I mentioned, there's a massive one coming in the head coach tomorrow. So subscribe and get that notification bell on for those updates. But a massive thanks for watching this one and your continued support of the series as always, and I hope to see you next time as we come back for the start of Season 7.